Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. David Letterman returns to the Ed Sullivan Theater tonight. He is the guest on Stephen Colbert. It's been 8 years already since Letterman stopped hosting Late Show. Dave's been on a bunch of other shows, including The Drew Barrymore Show, The View, Kimmel, Late Night with Seth, James Corden, but he has not yet returned to the Ed Sullivan Theater. That'll change tonight. Colbert himself broke the news. Some news reports say it's not clear what Letterman is coming on to talk about, but I'm guessing Letterman is auctioning off the marquee for the Ed Sullivan Theater, right? So that would be a good reason to return to the Ed Sullivan Theater. I'm guessing that's what that's about. We'll find out tonight. The big announcement that came out Friday, I had mentioned to you on Saturday that I saved it for today. Not sure why San Francisco Sketchfest picked a Friday to announce these things. But they have announced the initial lineup for the 2024 Comedy Festival taking place in San Francisco, January 18th through February 4th. I have done that festival in the past. It is fantastic. You should go. We're going to spend a lot of time here telling you about it. More than 200 shows. Special events this year include Eric Idle in his first live North American show in 7 years, joined by his friend and collaborator Jeff B. Davis for a one-night performance featuring music, conversation, and scenes, including the world premiere of a never-before-seen Monty Python sketch. That's interesting. Comedy icons The Kids in the Hall will bring sketches, stories, and songs to Sketchfest. Performing as the full cast and also in solo shows, The State Hits and Misses features the 90s favorites performing rare, never-before-seen sketch pitches and giant misfires. Theatrical parodies include The Fast and the Furious, a musical parody, love it, and Exorcistic, the unauthorized rock musical parody of The Exorcist. Some podcasts will be there, including Triumph the Insult Comic Dog with guest Weird Al. I didn't know Triumph had a podcast. Is that a thing? Where's my phone? I didn't know that was a thing. Did you know that was a thing? I do this show every day, and I research this stuff. And I have an ego, and I look at the podcast charts, especially under comedy. Let's see here. Let's Make a Poop. It does seem to be a thing. It put out an episode in December of 2019 that had Pete Davidson on it. And in June of 2020, it put out Quarantine Squares. So I guess the Weird Al will be the third episode of this. I guess it's a podcast with an atypical schedule. That explains why it's not on my radar. This has nothing to do with comedy, but music programming includes Michael Shannon and Jason Narducci performing two separate classic REM albums, Murmur and Reckoning, over 2 nights, so that's neat. Returning festival favorites back to comedy include Asian AF, Maria Bamford, Todd Barry, The Black Version, Joel Kim Booster, David Cross, Fake TED Talks, Joe Firestone, Futurama, The Improvised Shakespeare Company, Judge John Hodgman, Marc Maron, Eugene Merman, Dulce Sloan, Paul F. Tompkins, Jenny Yang, and the proverbial many more. The SF Sketchfest is a yearly spotlight of 12 top comedians is once again stacked, featuring Emma Arnold, Greg Barris, Katrina Davis, Mike Drucker, Mohamed El-Shiki, Joelle Nicole Johnson, Liz Mealy, Claire O'Kane, Jess Tom, Mo Welch, and Paige Weldon. Later in the release, we get more of a bullet point format. It'll be a little easier for me to fly through. Special events and tributes. Eric Idle told you about The Kids in the Hall Unplugged, The Kids in the Hall Scenes They Wouldn't Let Us Do, An Afternoon with Amber Ruffin. The State tells you about that. Sketch and improv comedy includes Beverly Live, The Big Team, The Black Version, Britannic, Convoy, Dinosaur Improv. That show includes Jason Mantzoukas and Paul Scheer, among others. Drunk Theater, George Prov with Connor Ratliff. Gethard and Sager, Girl God, The Groundlings, The Improvised Shakespeare Company, Killing My Lobster, Spawn Tour Co. with Paul F. Tompkins, Super Married, Theme Park Improv with Ian Brennan, Rachel Dratch, Oscar Nunez, and a bunch of others. Time to Kill is a sketch comedy show. There are also variety and game shows, including Asian AF, Ask a Magician, Battle of the Wizards, The Bay Area Pun Off, Black Men Can't Jump, Brew Ha Ha, the comedy drinking game show with Matt Bronger, A Close Shave with Heaven, a super serious night of poetry and comedy. Kurt Braunohler and Eugene Merman are on that show. Comedian Feud. I guess that's like Family Feud. The guests include Paul F. Tompkins, Sashir Zamata, Lauren Lupkus, Tony Newsom, Blair Sochi. David Wayne's World of Wonder is a night of magic, comedy, music, and other delights. Filipino AF. Jeopardy, love it, with Spike Einbeiner and Honey Pluton. Jeopardy is hilarious, love it. Knees Up with Chris Turner. Maniac Bowl. Okay, Who Did It with Joe Firestone. Self-Help Me with Jenny Yang. South Asian AF. Tinder Live with Lane Moore and David Cross. the Traventure Zone, a night of Dungeons and Dragons and also comedians, and Varietopia with Paul F. Tompkins. Bunch of podcasts and talk shows. Let's see what you might have heard of. Doug Loves Movies. The George Lucas talk show is a lot of fun. Hello from the Magic Tavern. I Love My Kid Butt with Kurt Braunohler, Megan Galley, and Chris Garcia. Wow, Chris Garcia. I haven't heard that name in a while. He was a new face at Montreal. Oh, I'm going back. I think it was 2015 from memory. I thought he was going to have a much bigger career than he has. Moshe Kasher. More Paul F. Tompkins. Talking Simpsons. Yo, Is This Racist? There's some music and comedy shows. Let me see if I can pick the comedy out of here really quickly. Off Book, the improvised musical. That's a fantastic podcast. I'm a big fan of that one. Stupid Songs and Stories with Kevin McDonald. The Benson Movie Interruption will cover Fast X. Futurama's 25th Anniversary Spectacular with David X. Cohen, John DiMaggio, David Herman, and others, including Billy West. Outtake-O-Rama is described as infamous celebrity outtakes with David X. Cohen, John DiMaggio, Maurice LaMarche, and Billy West. Fake TED Talks, Matt Bronger again, Guy Brainham, and some others. Porchlight is a storytelling series with Christella Alonso, Chris Garcia, Bob Odenkirk, and more. A show called So Say We All, Vamp Nonfiction Showcase. So Say We All is a catchphrase from Battlestar Galactica. I wonder if that is involved. I don't know. Oh, and we're up to the stand-up comedy section. Are you getting the sense yet that this thing is huge? That's why I didn't cram it in on Saturday. This is its own thing. All right, the comedians include Aaron Chen, Bad Indian, a Native American comedy show with Joshua Emerson, Blabbermouth with Phil Griffiths and Red Scott, Brett Gelman, the Comedians with Disabilities Act, David Cross and Friends, DJ Jemmers. Been playing him over on the Live One app. I like DJ a lot. Dulce Sloan. Fun Voices with Ron Funches and Blair Sochi. Hot Sets with Veronica Kwiatkowski and Sam Clark. An Hour with Josh Johnson. Jenna Friedman, Not Funny. Joel Kim Booster and Friends. John Glazer's Smoothing Meditations for the Solitary Dog. Marc Maron, All In is the name of that show. Maria Bamford. Matt Bronger again. Eugene Merman. Resistance is Fertile with Brooke Heinechin and Louisa Isbell. Todd Barry's Half Joking Tour. Zenabe Johnson's Kids Shows. And Mo Willems and the Storytime All-Stars Live with W. Kamau Bell, Dulce Sloan, Weird Al Yankovic, and more. Sketchfest, San Francisco, January 18th through February 4th at many venues. About 2 months ago, I made a pledge that on Mondays, I would remember to tell you guys what I'm playing over on the Weekly Comedy Thing, which is the show I host on the Live One app. If you don't know what that is, the app is free. It's called Live One. On the app, there's a show. It's called the Weekly Comedy Thing. It's like this, except I can actually play the comedian's bits there. So if I tell you a story about Jim Gaffigan, then I play some Jim Gaffigan. Now, since I made this promise, I have forgotten every other week to do it. Like, I totally forget. I get in the car Monday, I drive to the Donuts chain. I'm like, I forgot to plug the Live One show. But this, being an every other week, for some reason, every other week, I remember to do it. On this week's show, Brad Williams, Bert Kreischer, talking about that whole thing with the Iditarod that I told you about on here. Kevin Hart, winner of the Mark Twain Prize. New podcast from Daniel Tosh and Dan Soder. Give me an excuse to play those guys. Tom Segura announced his tour, so I'll play him. Some Thanksgiving stuff. Jim Gaffigan talking about gravy. Andrew Santino thinks you should own your own material. Anthony Jeselnik talking about getting older. Eddie Murphy's got a Christmas movie coming out. Jay Farrow on impressions. And a clip from Spam-A-Lot. So it's the Weekly Comedy Thing on the Live One app. Speaking of Daniel Tosh, he was describing his podcast, which is off to a good start. He says, I'll be interviewing people who I find interesting, so not celebrities and certainly not comedians. If you're looking for a podcast that will educate and inspire or one that'll make you think, this isn't the one for you. Johnny Mac, you never talk about Matt Rife. I know, right? Well, the Des Moines Register said, hey, remember a while back there was the hottest mom in a video that went viral, part of the whole Matt Rife viral thing. There's this woman, she's a hot mom, whatever. Anyway, Matt was in Ames, Iowa on his tour, and he asked the crowd if Christina the hot mom was present. What do you know? She was. If you're in New York City, remember the comedy club Dangerfields? I wound up there the night of my prom. After the prom, you know, you're 17, you got to find some place who'll let you in at 1 a.m. and maybe look the other way on your choices of beverage. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, Dangerfield's closed in 2020, but a new owner is going to open a comedy club on the same site. It will not be called Dangerfields. It'll have a new name. We don't know what the name is yet. But the new 200-person club on 1st Avenue and 61st Street on the east side of Manhattan will remain open until 2 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, with shows most likely wrapping up around midnight. That's to keep the neighbors calm who were like, well, comedy club. Look, there's a comedy club there until you moved in last year. Relax. Comedy fans will be able to supplement their laughter with hors d'oeuvres and upscale cocktails. The owner said the club will focus on featuring a modern, inclusive comedy scene, showcasing up-and-comers as well as established veterans, which is every club. There'll be open mic hours earlier in the evening. There will not be a late show during the week. And the article, for some reason, points out that soon, directly across the street, a new store will open. That new store is a cannabis shop. Rodney Dangerfield himself opened his club in 1969, providing the neighborhood with 50 years of laughs from stars such as Jerry Seinfeld, Robin Williams, Roseanne, and Chris Rock. If you saw the 2019 movie The Joker, remember The Joker does some comedy? That was filmed at Dangerfield's. But Dangerfield's went out in October 2020. You may remember there was this big pandemic and we didn't really leave the house and go to comedy clubs. Congratulations to George Costanza, who has made Cooperstown, no, not Jason Alexander, and no, not the Baseball Museum Hall of Fame or whatever it's called. This is George Costanza, the character, who now appears at the Cooperstown Heroes of Baseball Wax Museum in Cooperstown, New York. They pride themselves as being the only wax museum dedicated to baseball. Makes sense. You may recall that George Costanza worked for the New York Yankees in the 1990s. That's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Overcast, Podcast, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow.